start directly. Thank you for joining us for this breakout session, Bolstering Partnerships for Growth in Towns and Villages. I'm Pat Jackson, Municipalities of Saskatchewan Southeast Regional Director, and I'm a councillor for the town of Kipling. This session is being audio recorded as well as live streamed. That means if you want to ask a question, please go to the microphone, identify yourself and your municipality, and speak clearly into it when asking your question. Because we are on a very, very short time crunch, I would ask that if you're asking a question, we don't have a long preamble. There's live question and answer. If you post a question, our young Mr. Sean down here will come up to the mic and relay it for us. That's your choice during the question and answer. Presentations will be available on YouTube channel. Please give these people your full attention. They've come to try and give us information, and they deserve your attention. And thank you as well for so many of you for staying. I know it's getting well into the afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce Tom Golden. And you know what I found out today? Son of Randy. He's the CAO for the town of Stony Plain in Alberta. Mayor Jesse Gordon from the town of East End. Deputy Reeve Warren Fossum from the RM of White Valley, number 49. Reeve Don Lundberg from the RM of Arlington, number 79. And Edna Laturnis, CAO for the town of East End and the RM of White Valley, number 49. Thank you for joining us today. Now, I'll turn the first part over to Tom, and he has said he would be more comfortable working from the podium for this, but when it comes to a lot of it, they may just stay seated there.
Thanks, Mom. Okay, I think the PowerPoint's up. It's certainly good to be back at the SUMA conference, Saskatchewan born and raised, and to be in the shadow of Mosaic Stadium. I've ran into a couple people that I've known over the years. If you don't know Bob Smith, the city manager in Warman, the guy always looks like $1 million. I'm looking forward to finding Jim Toy here somewhere, the city manager in Prince Albert. I'm sure he still looks like $10. Perfect, all right. So I'm here to speak, just give me a second. Again, just quickly, I'm currently the city manager, CAO in Stony Plain, Alberta. It's a population of about 19,000. Previous to that, I was in Humboldt, Saskatchewan for 6 years as the city manager, and I spent a couple years in Brennenbury, Saskatchewan, small town just outside of Yorkton, just under 500 people. I'm going to talk to you about regional partnerships, how to work with them, how to move them forward, and I'm going to try to figure out this thing. There we go. So Stony Plain is located just west of Edmonton. We are about, like I said, 20,000 people. We have Spruce Grove. The city of Spruce Grove is right next to us. It's about 35,000, and we're located within Parkland County, another 30,000 people there. And we are also part of the broader Edmonton metro region. Between our two local partners, our municipalities right beside us, Spruce Grove and Parkland County, and that Edmonton metro region, I know we have about 50 different partnership arrangements, partnership agreements. We've done everything from large-scale capital projects. We just did a RCMP building with Spruce Grove to what would be, smaller-scale tourism agreements, marketing agreements with our partners there as well. Some of these are formalized, some are not quite as formalized, but I guess the point I'm trying to make, or safe to say, is that for my job, my specific work that I do with my municipality, a great deal of it is on partnership development. So I'm going to try to talk, I got I think about 10 to 12 minutes. I'm going to try to talk about 4 different topics. I'm going to talk about why we were doing partnerships, why they're important. I'm going to talk about how we do them, and I'm going to talk a little bit about who we do them with. And the final part is about what to do when it's not working, because as much effort and work that we put into these partnerships, there's certainly times where I'm probably not telling anybody in the room anything that you haven't figured out on your own, but sometimes it doesn't work. And I was going to walk through quickly the process we do in Stony Plain when something isn't working in a partnership. So to begin with, why do we do partnerships? The first reason that we do them, that we work on them a lot in Stony Plain, is that the competition is real. It's strong, and it's a challenge for us there. Part of our metro region work a few years back was a study about how we were going to move the metro region forward, and it was aptly titled "Don't Get Left Behind," and it was a call to action about the significant competition we all face for our municipalities. Again, in Stony Plain, we also face competition right in our local region as well as through Alberta. When we start talking about partnerships, when we begin to think them through, we take the time to understand that, in order to move our communities forward, we have to believe and almost be a little fearful of the competition that's out there. So that's one reason that we do a lot of partnership work. The second reason, which I'm sure everybody in the room is being very well aware, is that we're all stronger together when we work together with a partner, whether it's a municipal partner or a community group, local associations and whatnot. You're always going to be better off. It's something that we can just work together on. Again, I like to believe it's somewhat self-explanatory that you're better when you're working with a partner. And the final reason, the why, of why we do partnerships is, I think, the reason that we're all here today. It's the reason many of you put your names forward to run for elected office, and myself and my colleagues, search out positions in municipal government, and that's to essentially build stronger communities. That's the general reason that we exist, and we know that together, working together, and being mindful of our competition, that we'll be able to build better communities. And the reason that we talk a lot about the why, and I'll get a little bit to it later on, is as you move through any sort of partnership, it's good to tie back to the reality of why you're doing it. Why are partnerships important? What is the reason? Why are you doing that particular project? I think we're going to hear about a specific project next, but why is that project important to you? Why is it important to your community? So now just a little bit about how. How do we do it? The first bullet point there is, we work at our intermunicipal relationships. So for us in Stony Plain, we do a lot of work with our regional partners. I'll speak specifically about the municipal governments next to us, Spruce Grove and Parkland County. We not only spend time on specific issues or specific projects, but we spend time together, whether it's golfing, whether it's spending time at different suppers. We have joint meetings where there's not very serious topics on the agenda, where we just work through some rather light stuff and build that trust and build those relationships, so that when the times do get tough, that we have that solid commitment to each other. When I get asked back in our community or back in Alberta, I think we have generally a pretty strong relationship or understanding about Spruce, Parkland, and Stony have a good. We're seen as generally good partners, and I will always tell people that we spend a lot of time together. We work at things together. We talk a lot with each other. So it shouldn't be understated that this is a lot of work. To build a lot of partnerships is a fair amount of work. The second thing that we do a lot of, my mayor is super awesome at it, is we engage our community and talk to our community a lot about why partnerships are important for the town. And we will take the time to explain, we have this partnership, it saved us this much money. And if you can tie the partnership back to a tax dollar amount, your residents will start to pick up on that and understand why that it's important to the municipality. The third thing on how we do partnerships, we make sure that we take the time to formalize a lot of what we do. And we do it in stages. You know, we'll have some conversation about a project. Then what we will do is generally write up a memorandum of understanding or an agreement. So it's not a full-on contract. It's not a full agreement committing anybody to anything. But what we house in there is why. We house why the project's important, why we need to work together, why we need to commit to learning more about a particular project. And we get that signed with, like I said, Parkland County or Spruce Grove or whoever we're working with at that point. It sets the tone. It creates a bit of a policy framework for you to work within your partnerships. The other thing my council is clear about is we have policy statements on regional work, policy statements on partnership. And we spend a fair amount of time. It's adopted by council. It's formalized that way. What that helps us with is that those are the documents, the policy development that survives particular elections, survives your changes in your staff, so on and so forth. It becomes a formal part of who your organization is. When we're done with the MOU work, then we will move to a further, formal agreements. Maybe we're going to, at this point in time, we're going to sign, we're going to put in money to do a business case or so on and so forth. And whatever project you're working on will be obviously different. But the idea is to start building up a formal policy file, so to speak, on your regional partnership, because that will become part of who you are, part of your future, part of your history that way. This slide, again, who do we do this with? Key to any sort of partnership development that we find in our area is certainly your mayor and council, as the elected officials have to be on board, be excited about it, whether it's a particular project, whether it's just the broader notion of being a good partner and working on a lot of different partnerships. In your municipality, it'll be a little bit different, but typically the CAO or the city manager has a role to play in advancing these partnerships, spending time with their counterparts, understanding the challenges, understanding the issues, and also leading the organization to be a strong partner. The second bullet there is, you're going to have, especially on the ec dev side, if you're working on any sort of economic development, it's good to make sure that your regional businesses, your local businesses, your provincial, province-wide businesses are all understanding who you are, understanding why you want to be in the partnership business, so to speak, because they can help down the road. They can influence people. They can leverage different aspects in your community as well. And the last one is just your stakeholders, whoever that may be. On any different project, it may be your local recreation groups, it may be some of your church groups, it may be your different community groups. But when we talk partnership, we don't just talk like the town of Stony Plain and Parkland County. We expand that definition to our entire community. We need to work in partnership as communities, not just the town and the county or the city. My mayor does a great job of that as well. He's very much a leader on partnership development, and he spends a lot of time with our community groups talking to them about why it's important and the difference that these partnerships makes to them as a user group and as citizens. And as you, when I was thinking on this one, as you grow your project, whatever it may be, it's likely that your stakeholder group's going to expand. And the more you keep the community, the more the public is understanding the rationale, the why of the partnership, the better off things are likely to go in the event that it's not working. I thought this was kind of a good title. I could sit up here, I could tell you about a ton of things that have gone really well for Stony Plain. I could tell you a whole ton of things that went very poorly. We have a few right now. I was just talking with some of my counterparts from AUMA, and one of our partners has been particularly challenging over the past 18 months. A lot of the good work that we've done over decades has, somewhat started to unwind, and it's been a particularly challenging point for Stony Plain. So there's a couple things on there. Number one, you got to keep trying. It's too important of work. The why is too important to just stop or you know, wipe your hands of the matter. And the one in the middle there is the strategic influence. So if a partnership goes sideways and it's important to you and it's important to your community, there is a point in time where you may want to consider, you know, I mean, how are we going to leverage our partner? How are we going to influence our particular partner who maybe isn't coming to the table, who maybe isn't necessarily doing what we think they should be doing? How are we going to do that? Nope, the wrong slide here. There we go. So there's a couple different ways if you got a partner that's going sideways on you. First of all, you need to establish like clarity on what their concerns and issues are. And often if a partner is going a little sideways on you, they may not wish to do this. They may want to sort of sidetrack you and so on. But it's good to ask, what are your issues? What are your specific issues with this project, with this process, with whatever it may be? To frankly, in some ways, pin them down so that you can respond. You can go back, you take your time, you try to understand what their concern is, but certainly if you can address it, that's the best way to go about it. The second thing that we do a fair amount of, we don't do this right away. We try to make sure that we do everything we can to work with our partners, but if they're not listening to us, we find out who they do listen to. You know, and that can be different. It can, you know, it might be the local MLAs, it may be the people at the co-op, coffee shops, whoever. Whoever influences your partner is someone you want to get in front of and start talking to. And, you know, get your point across, get your main messages across, so on and so forth. And let them take that message back to your partner that the project is important. If they're not listening to you, they may listen to these people. The third one is to keep them involved. Again, the easiest thing on a partnership, if you want to walk away, is to say, oh, we don't know anything about this. We're not sure. We don't know what's going on. You can stop that from happening by keeping them involved, hitting them with the information, moving that communication out to them. The other thing, just a couple more slides. So the last couple things here, again, you know, you guys are all leaders in this room. Partnership work can be hard, especially if it goes sideways, and leaders need to continue leading. Again, it's too important to just step aside from or walk away from. The project may be near and dear to your community's heart, so on, but it's something you have to do. You have to stay focused on your strategy and your project. If you have a partner that's going a little sideways on you, again, another great tactic for someone who doesn't want to be involved in something is to just simply try to distract you from where you're wanting to go, throwing out, you know, I mean, a ton of questions, trying to change the tone of the conversation, and it's important for any leader to, when that vision is identified, to stay on that vision, stay on that strategy. And again, the final thing there is just to work to remove or satisfy their issues or their concerns. If they have any questions or thoughts, you know, I mean, in good faith, you should be working to try to eliminate those and work with them on it. But and if you can do that, you will likely be on your way to a good partnership. And that's about it. I'm going to wrap it up there because I think I probably went over time already. And I'll turn it back over to you.
I don't often have to move the mic down. Thank you very much, Tom. Now we're going to hear from our other four panelists, Jesse, Warren, Dawn, and Edna. They're going to tell us about their particular project. Please.
So while we're waiting for the slideshow here, getting a bit of an echo thing going on. East End is a town of 500 people. We are neighbors with RM of White Valley and RM of Arlington, and each of them are less than 500 people, so fairly sparse population, so we find that we have to work together a lot to get the things done that we want done. So I'm just going to run quickly through some of the stuff that we've been doing, and then I'll turn it over to the RM guys, and they can give you their point of view on why they think it's important, and you know, maybe how you guys can adopt some of these things. So I think this is the magic button here, maybe. Hey. So a few years ago, we did a a new fire hall, and so that's a joint. Oh, I got a timer coming up here now. It's a joint venture between the town and the two RMs, and so here's some pictures of that. It also houses our ambulance, and yeah, so it's got training upstairs. It's a fancy, swanky place. Another thing, we had the local Kinsman Club decided they wanted to do, which I'm a member of. We decided that we wanted to redo the swimming pool and add a splash park to it. And we raised quite a bit of money, but the RM stepped in and kind of helped us finish the project. So that was a huge thing for us. And here's some pictures of what we've got now. So I've got a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they pretty much live there in the summertime. We also did a rebranding campaign a few years ago. I'm not sure if anybody's remembers that. We got some awards for that. That was also a joint thing between the RM and the town, and it just seems to work a lot better when we do things together. So. We also got some national recognition out of that. We're also redoing our historical museum, and the RM stepped up and helped with the cement for that, and so that's all volunteer labor, and we should have that back up and running here hopefully this summer. Another thing that we do is an annual rec grant, so that's the town and the two RMs kick in on that, and then we meet and divide the money to whatever we see fit within the community. So here's some of the recipients of that. We redid the rodeo grounds, our golf course, which is pretty nice. We've got a new town square for hosting events, and our annual Dino Days, we do a bunch of stuff there. The new light horse show was also a recipient, and our observatory. So it's pretty tough with 500 people to keep all that stuff going without some support from your local RMs, and their contributions make it possible. So yeah, another thing that we're doing is right now we're in the tendering process for a new water plant, and the RM has also decided to help us with the funding of that. So every time we go to do something, we've got support, and it just makes things possible. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible to do most of these things. So I'll turn it over to Warren, and he'll give us a little bit of background on why they do what they do, and where this all started.
I am Warren Fossum, Deputy Reeve of the RM of White Valley. Just give you a little background. I've been a councillor maybe too long, but I've been a councillor for 42 years. Wow. And anyways, little bit of history. I live about 30 miles from East End, so I'm kind of on the southern part of the RM of White Valley. My real hometown is Frontier, Saskatchewan. But we went through quite a few different areas. But one of the biggest things that I really noticed, and that's all of Saskatchewan, or southern Saskatchewan, is really noticed. I was one of the guys that bought one of the elevators in a group in Frontier. When that happened, that community lost $80,000 in tax. And that was really the biggest part of Frontier, to put money back into their community. I mean, we pay a tax, but it's nothing like what was come out of there when the pool elevator was closed. So when you go to East End, it's the same thing. They had 2 elevators. They had the pool and Pioneer, and they both sold to farmers. Nothing for taxation, okay? So we took a look at this. The RM really, yeah, we had lots of fights, but I kind of, as my administrator will say, I was kind of fought for what went on. And one of the interesting comments is this water project. I mean, it's a few $1 million that the government, we had to go forward if we want to have water for our community, okay? And back in our meetings, yeah, there was lots of, well, should we, people that talked against it. And I said to the council, I said, where does your kids go to school? Where do they have to participate in a swimming pool? Where do they go for the skating, okay? All that stuff has got no taxation for the community of East End. None of it. And so when it come back to council, when I said them things, the council all of a sudden, oh, well, you know, I guess we better put some money into it. It's part of living. Even though half the farmers in the rural area live in East End, well, you know, that's part of it. So we come up and we put a third in. Them kind of things, somebody has to have a little bit of longevity and luck to see what is going to happen out there. And it's not all council, because as my administrator will admit, you know, there was some good bantering back and forth type of deal. But people have to realize where their community is. And so ours is working pretty good. I'll give you another direction is we had a daycare come to us here about last fall type of deal. And I think this is a cute one on how you can have communication. The daycare come to the municipality and they've been selling tickets, and I know we'd all bought tickets. They needed new flooring. It was $20,000 for this new flooring for the kids. And it come to the RM, and right away we had a counselor stand up, and he said, you know, he said, my wife stayed home. I don't think we need to put any money into this daycare. So I know on one side of my council, there's 10 counselors. One side of my council's got some young counselors, okay? And so the talk got going back and forth, and finally they looked at me and they said, well, what do you think? And I said, you know something? My kids are all grown. They're all they're at home on the farm. 2 of the boys are. But I said, I needed that daycare back 25, 30 years ago. Because I said they spent 10 hours on my tractor sometimes. So that daycare would have been very viable. And we turned around about 5 minutes later and we said, let's give them $10,000. They got new flooring. That's how you cooperate. And you got to have some foreclosure in there to make that work, okay? Somebody has to come forward. And it's just, I don't know. We're working pretty good now, but it took some heat along the way type of deal to make it work. So thank you.
I'm comfortable sitting here in the chair. Am I on? No. Okay. No, I'll use the podium. Oh, that's fine. Oh, that's fine. I'm here now. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a real privilege to be here to present some ideas of how we do it in our corner of the province. Like it's been mentioned earlier, we're a small population, and we just know we have to work together or things aren't going to happen. Speaking from the perspective of my municipality, we're bordered on the east side by the town of Shaunavon and the town of East End on the west side, and we work closely. We have a number of initiatives with both towns, And we're very pleased and proud to be able to do that, because regional cooperation is it's essential in rural Saskatchewan. And I know there's lots of areas in the province that don't work together very well and don't do things that way. And I encourage you, please sit down again and talk to your neighbors, and let's work together, and you can get so many more things done. We've spent a pile of money in our town, in the town of East End, by working together and developed, like was shown on the slides, a beautiful swimming pool with water slides. We have a beautiful new fire hall that's state-of-the-art, emergency response vehicles, everything we need by working together and not being adversarial. I guess this thing I would speak about is for towns and villages and smaller centers, when you're approaching these rural municipalities, go in with a plan, prepare a bit of a budget, and go in and ask to attend one of their meetings, and tell them what you want to do. Don't just come to the offices and say, we're building this building, we need $50,000. Go in and approach them and ask them if they can help you. I think there's a misconception that all rural municipalities have lots of money, and that's not true. There's some that do, and some are not very wealthy at all. For our two municipalities, Arlington and White Valley, we're pretty fortunate. We have quite a bit of resource revenue, so we do have a lot of resources, and we can help out with these things. But every municipality can help the other one to a certain extent. It doesn't have to be a huge amount. You can do work in kind. You can do lots of different ways to work together. But I would encourage you to sit down, talk things out, present your ideas, and tell the other group what you want to do, how you think you can do it, and get some feedback from them. And I think if you approach it on that basis, you'll get a lot more cooperation in these situations where one's trying to tell the other what to do and what we need to do. One of my other key issues that I like to speak about is when towns or someone else approaches my municipality for funding. My favorite saying, is it a need or is it a want? Because there's a heck of a difference. If you just want to do something or you really need something, and a building needs to be replaced or something needs to be fixed that's essential, I think you'll get a lot better response if people perceive it as a real need, not just something you want to do, because let's face it, we're all a little bit tight. We don't like to give away money when we have to, but I think if there's a real need there, most municipalities will respond to another municipality's need if they perceive that it's justified. I think that's the basis of everything I have to say, is just how to approach these rural municipalities and how to work together. So if there's any questions, we'll answer after, I guess. Thank you.
Who's next up?
Edna, do you have anything to add?
You can stay right from there if it's working.
Is it turned on now?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for paying attention to our presentation. I would like to thank my counselors for their presentations and explaining. I'm very happy to work with the counselors I have. We have a joint office, as you know, but the Arm of Arlington is a neighboring municipality, and we still have such good rapport and work so well together. Again, the municipalities realize that a lot of the facilities that they use in the urban center has exempt assessment, so no taxation revenue, and that's one of the big things that they've realized to help work towards these projects.
Thanks, Emma.
Mayor?
What?
Your turn.
Oh, I've been up.
You've been up. Okay, sorry. I lost my mind there for a minute. That's the way I am. Okay, I'm going to pop a couple of questions that they can field as they see fit, and then we will open it up for some questions from you. Were there challenges at the beginning that you faced in setting up some of these projects, or in your case, Tom, some of the projects that you've worked on, and how did you go about dealing with them? Whoever wishes to answer. It can be in your projects or,
White Valley?
Your turn, you're on.
In White Valley, there was lots of issues. Biggest reason is rural municipalities in Saskatchewan, maybe Tom's got a different situation in Alberta, but in rural Saskatchewan, everybody in rural Saskatchewan figures the towns can look after themselves. And I'm finding that our towns can't look after themselves. They've got to have some community part to come in. So in our meetings, when issues come up with the town of East End needing, I should back up a minute. The town of East End never really ever totally approached the RMs as far as, hey, we need funding, okay? We kind of seen it in our meetings. The people that are around East End, it come to the meeting. And so we talked about it, but there was lots of times at our meetings that, no, we never had good communication as far as going to giving the town money. But in the end, when it was finally done, yeah, there was a couple of us that would, make an issue and people would finally realize that, I guess there needs to be some money spent. Then it come about. So what can I say? Ours is working, but I'm not saying it's working for everybody, okay? Because there's lots of councils that I know down there that don't have good communication, okay?
anyone else from the Southwest have another comment to make on that?
From the perspective of my municipality of Arlington, we've had long-term relationships both with the town of East End and Shawnee, and I think the first ones were probably with emergency rescue and fire. I can't say, when we've been approached for funding, we generally listen to the presentation from the town or whatever, looking for funding, and then we'll sit down and discuss it at our meeting and get back to them. And generally we participate in all our requests to a certain level. We figure out what we figure we can afford and what priority it should have according to our wants and needs, and go from there.
Thank you. Tom, do you have a project that you worked on that had major challenges? And if so, how were they addressed?
Yeah, there's a couple things when it comes to challenges on the projects, and our environment may be a little bit different. But it was mentioned earlier to go in as soon as you're working on the project. Don't wait till you're halfway done and show up and say, hey, I want some money from in our case, the counties as they're called there. But our dynamic is a little bit different in that we don't necessarily consider ourselves going in there and asking for funding. We believe that those facilities are being used by and we know they are being used by the residents of the county. So we go in looking for an investment or a partnership or and frankly, sometimes if it's not going well, we get a little louder that your residents are using these things, and for those reasons, you need to fund these facilities. And to be frank, sometimes that goes well, and sometimes it goes really poorly. And that's on us as well for the way we frame the conversation, the way we make those approaches, and the way we open up the dialogue. And the other comment I heard, a few times was, communication and trust and working through it. And we have another saying too, in ours, Parkland County and Spruce Grove isn't going anywhere. We're going to be neighbors forever. They're not going to pick up and move the county somewhere else. So whether we like it or not, we need to get along. We need to find solutions. We need to sometimes step back and walk away from a project or a challenge for a little while, and everybody can take a bit of a breath, and then come back into the room and try to move it forward. So, if I can say from our side, our particular perspective in Stony Plain, if something goes wrong, it usually comes down to was poorly timed communication, or was framed the wrong way, or we didn't build enough of a relationship to begin with. So.
I'm kind of going to go off script to ask a question that I'm really curious about. Particularly, Tom, in your situation, though it may affect some of yours, are there times that you will have a project in its really germination stages and decide that it might actually be better not located in Stony Plain, but in one of the counties? And, you know, do you work back and forth with things like that?
Yeah, again, I mean, our particular, setting, there's roughly between the three of us, I think there's 80,000-90,000 people in our sub-region. And the town of Stony Plain does fund rec facilities outside the boundaries of Stony Plain, boat docks and playgrounds and so forth in the county. And that's part of our acknowledgement that our residents drive out there too. It's part of the, no actual boundary. Our residents don't really care when they cross from one RM into the town or from Stony Plain into Spruce Grove. They're just looking for the services that they want to access.
That's the reason I asked that question. That is something that has been discussed a number of times before. Maybe we all need to be working much more regionally and not be trying to say that this particular community should be getting all the services. Maybe certain things are better in other areas. Okay. Two-part question, and this mainly for the four of you. One, did the projects that you have done strengthen the connection that you have with each other as municipalities? And the second part is, how do you see this working 10 years from now?
Okay, do you want me to take a stab at it?
Go for it.
Everything worked fine. We had a lot of volunteers. There wasn't many negatives on any of the projects we worked on from the ratepayers. I think everything was really positive. We've got a pretty unique area down there, and everyone seems to work together. And it's been a long-term working relationships, not formalized but informally before. And when we do these projects, we'll get a lot of volunteer work and a lot of volunteer help, trying to save money on these projects. I think they're working well. We have a lot of people from the outlying areas, like down to Consul and from Frontier, people coming and using our swimming pool. Their kids are playing hockey there. We're going back and forth on these projects, and I think it's really strengthened the whole area. One thing we didn't mention, and it wasn't brought up, but we do work, the 2 towns and 4 municipalities also work on a regional landfill that we determined about 10 or 12 years ago. We were all in trouble for our landfill operations. So we brought that all together, and we've got a state-of-the-art landfill that was developed, and that's working great, and that benefits the towns of East End and Shaunham both. And I really can't see any negatives at all. Nothing coming down the pipeline that doesn't look positive to me.
Anyone else from? Yes, sir.
Well, the only...
You're green.
You're on.
The only difference that I see, we're working together, but long term, you got new councillors coming. Yeah, it'll be interesting. See how it works. We still got towns. I'm from Frontier.
Yeah.
And we got a rink, and we put money into the rink type of deal. Not this RM has. Well, I guess we do, huh?
Little
we
bit,
give Well, we give some money this year, yeah. But anyways, but we still are individuals. Okay?
Yes.
And we still like our councils to be individuals. East End is pretty lucky right now that they've got an RM or 2 RMs that put money into their community. But I see that as a struggle for a lot of rural or towns right now in Saskatchewan type of deal.
You're right.
Because that community is not there with a lot of towns. I mean, we're fortunate, but there's a lot of towns that struggle. So.
Any comments from you, Mayor?
Yeah, I think the only threat that I see going forward to the relationship between the town and the RMs is that like, we have to keep our gratitude higher than our expectations. Like, the moment that we start doing projects and expecting that the RMs are gonna kick in a certain amount of funding, that's not gonna work. So we find what we need to do and we try and do it. And if we can get some funding from the RMs, it's very appreciated. And you know, we just, you know, we can't express enough how much we appreciate the help from the RMs. But the moment that that switches and we have higher expectations than our gratitude, it's not going to work anymore, because you're going to have councillors that are upset, and the sense of entitlement would be what got us, if anything did.
So that's part of the culture that you have to make sure goes on to the next council, no matter what happens this fall?
Yeah.
That's we have to
Yeah,
try.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Try.
Yeah,
Try.
yeah, good. Okay, I have someone at the mic here. Is your question directed at anyone in particular?
Not particular. It's
Name
for the RMs. I guess my name's Jamie Brandrick, Mayor Borden. Question for the RMs: if you have more than one urban municipality in your RM, do you folks feel that you have to help out? I guess we'll say equally with each other, because we approached our RM for help with the cemetery, and basically they said no, because if we have to help you, now we have to help them with their cemetery. The other town that's in the RM. So do you folks feel that you have to do that equally, or is that just well, to me that's just a cop out?
Well, do we own the cemetery in town?
They're not the town one, but the RM has purchased the mower.
Well, we purchased the more to do the town cemetery. Well, we got two cemeteries? Three, but we don't own them. They're individuals, okay?
Right. No, I guess the question is, do you feel if you help this one town, do you have to help the other town at the same or equally?
He does. He does, because he's between Shaunavon and East End, okay? And he touches East End, and he just about touches Shaunavon, so he produces. No, we're just East End, but we do give money to Frontier, some money to Frontier as far as a rec grant, okay? And the ambulance in Frontier they're a private ambulance down in Frontier, and we top up money to that ambulance fund type of deal.
Okay, so
Okay.
you help each other. I guess you help both communities.
Yeah,
out.
we do in that sense, but that's about all I so far put money into Frontier. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, just speaking from the perspective of my municipality, like Warren said, we border the two towns without a town within our boundaries. But we provide a fairly substantial recreation grant to both towns of the equal amount every year. And we try and keep it as balanced as we can, you know, providing help to both towns, because Lord only knows both small towns need help, and we do everything we can to keep it as even and equal as we can.
Sir.
Dylan Claypool, Deputy Mayor of Town of Asquith. We are kind of like the four corners down in the United States. We're right in the corner, and in RM of Vanscoy, then we have Eagle Creek, and then we have Purdue and Corman Park. We have a really good working relationship with Vanscoy, somewhat with Purdue. Eagle Creek is a smaller RM, and then Corman Park is huge. Our working relationship with Corman Park is horrible. It's non-existent. It's horrible. But without going into it, I just wonder, how can we start a new relationship with the Corman Park?
Any of you feeling strong?
Have you sat down with them at a joint meeting and arranged a formalized meeting and just sat down and discussed the issues you feel you have? And
Well, we joined a board that they're on, and we've had a meeting with them, but it just seems like it's still very negative. So, you know, I take away from Tom the talk to the influencers, and that's maybe what I'll have to do. But I just wonder if there's any other ideas that you guys might have.
so what kind of relationships are you looking for?
Well,
Recreation or landfill or funding or?
We've done the landfill thing, and it didn't turn out great, but we got through it. But fire department mostly for us. We have a great relationship with Vanscoy, and we started a great relationship with Eagle Creek and Purdue with memorandum of understanding and mutual aid. And Eagle Creek just dropped out, but they're going to do their own firefighting. But Corman Park has never gave us anything besides back in the 80s, one truck. And we've looked after the maintenance on that vehicle since the 80s.
The one, I guess, couple thoughts I would have with that. I know the last municipal elections around our region, seen some reasonably high turnover. So we had to start a lot of new relationships with the other councils. And again, we were specific about it. We mentioned like we want to meet on this date. Set it all up officially and all that sort of stuff. But the one thing we did, and this is part of my mayor's perspective, was, he didn't put anything formally on the agenda necessarily. Like, it wasn't like the first time we were going to talk to these people, we were going to, hammer out a bunch of agreements. It was like, let's just sit down and eat and chill out a little bit. And the other thing that he his perspective was to find something where we can probably get a quick win and agree on something, even if it's small, and we'll feel better about that. And that may kick us off into further relationships and tougher stuff.
Thank you.
I tend to agree a little with Tom. Food is wonderful for sort of chilling things out and making it easier for people to get together.
And
Yes.
my mayor owns a restaurant too, by the way.
Pardon me?
My mayor actually owns a restaurant.
Oh, okay, well, we won't get into that one. Yes,
Good
please.
afternoon, it's Nancy Schneider here from St. Walbert. Nancy Schneider from St. Walbert.
Thank you, that's better.
First off, I'd like to commend you on your working together, and it's very impressive and inspirational. I've got a quick question. Have you got anything formally drafted for resolving issues or conflicts at the beginning of your projects so that you have a way of dealing with things before they become mountains? That's my question.
I don't think so.
No, I don't know, none of us, but
Okay.
no, we've never went there. No formal way to, no, I haven't. We
And then
just
Stony
go
Plain?
forward.
Yeah, I would say when we get into the formal, when money starts to go back and forth, there will be some mechanisms in there, whether it's to determine that the county has an approval on something or the town has an approval on something. But as we move down the line in a project, there will be some formal, it may be if there's a dispute about something, the CAOs work it out, and if they don't, then it goes up to the council committees or what have you. But we will have something usually built into the more formal, large-scale projects, yeah.
I'm going to throw a little comment in just from experience. Having something down in writing, not necessarily at the beginning, not when you're doing the planning and the general talking, but once you get to where you're actually agreeing to do something together, having something down in writing is a very good idea for the simple reason councils change. And as councils change, the perspective might change, but the incoming councils need to know the what, the why, the how, the who of why of this agreement. Okay.
I'll just make one, can I make one comment on that?
Yes, please.
Warren said we don't have, if we run into problems, we don't have a mechanism in there. But all these are formalized, like our emergency services, our medical services, that landfill, all that stuff, that's in formalized agreements. That's all done that way. But we didn't put a mechanism in to resolve any issues at the start.
Good.
I guess we just didn't look far enough ahead that we'd foresee any, and we've been fortunate we haven't. So,
And that's
so they are
awesome.
formalized, but not to that extent.
Thank you. At this mic, we've got one of our staff members who's got a question.
So there was a question on the app, and it's how do you build the regional relationship with another municipality when they have a different agenda or mindset?
Can we go back to what we said before? Food?
Yeah.
Try some wine.
And wine. got me there.
Sorry, I mean, just a quick comment on that, and I mean, there are certainly times where your partner is gonna have a different way of looking at a project or just the partnership itself. The odd time where we found ourselves really off track, we basically try to back it all the way up to like, what are we all here for? We're all here to make our community better. We can agree on that, and if we can agree on that, well, maybe we can agree on something else. So it's almost just take it right back to the very beginning of why you guys put your names down to run for office, and we're here to make our communities better. We can agree there. Let's start from there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anyone else? We got another question on your app?
There's two left.
Okay.
Was the water project for both municipalities? I'm guessing this refers to the town of East End. Was the water project for both municipalities or just the town?
So it's a town water plant, and the RM of White Valley has decided to help fund it.
But it helps the farmers too, because that water is, there's guys that use that water plant for spraying and other things, okay, down the road. So it helps both, but.
There's no rural water pipeline or anything like that, but there is usage.
Yeah.
The last question is, with the level of cooperation, are the rural municipalities putting money into their budgets to assist the towns or the urbans with their borders to financially assist with projects? Like, is it something that you build into your budgets?
Oh boy. Not really built into our budget, but it's, I guess we're fairly fortunate because we got extra funding within our budgets, okay? And it's because of resource revenue, okay? So we've seen fit to go ahead with that.
Right.
As we got a certain mill rate, no, it's not sitting there. It's just, just as need be, we feel that that's where we're coming from, okay?
It's more of a reactionary thing rather than a budgeted projection,
Yeah, like the rec grant, because it's reoccurring, you guys would budget for that.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
But some of this other stuff is, like any of the one-offs wouldn't be.
Yeah, in our area, it would sound similar. Like we have operating agreements for recreation and fire and different things. And, I mean, those are typically 3-year agreements or 5 or something. The capital stuff, that's, it may be in the budget 4 years out, but not formally approved. And we discuss it back and forth and so on and so forth. So.
Thank you all. Thank you to the panel. I appreciate very much the things you have said. Thank you to all of you who have hung in right to the last minute.
We held most of them for
If you're don't forget to check YouTube. Probably, someone told me about 3 weeks down the road on the SUMA. I think it's still called SUMA. Thank you. If not,